Passengers froze. A trained K-9 suddenly growled and lunged at a single suitcase in the middle of the airport terminal. Seconds later, officers opened it, and what they found inside made grown men cry. No one expected this. What started as a normal day turned into a heartbreaking revelation that stunned the world. Officer Jamie Reynolds had worked with K-9 units for nearly a decade. Her partner, a highly trained Labrador retriever named Max, was one of the most dependable dogs in the unit, calm, intelligent, and precise. Max had sniffed out everything from narcotics to explosives, earning a reputation for being almost unshakable. That morning, Jamie and Max had been assigned to patrol the baggage claim and surrounding areas. They moved through the crowd effortlessly, scanning the air and luggage for any trace of danger. Passengers smiled at Max, some pausing to take photos, while Jamie kept her focus sharp. Then, without warning, Max froze. His ears perked up, and his body stiffened like a statue. Jamie recognized the signal instantly. Max had detected something. But before she could react, Max lunged toward an unclaimed navy blue suitcase resting beside a pillar near the international arrivals exit. He barked with intensity, claws scraping against the polished tile floor as he pawed at the suitcase. People stopped to watch, unsure whether to be alarmed or intrigued. Jamie's instincts kicked in. She called for backup and began cordoning off the area. Something about Max's reaction felt different, urgent, emotional. Whatever was in that suitcase, it wasn't what they expected. Within seconds, airport security and additional officers swarmed the area. Jamie stood firmly next to Max, keeping him from damaging the suitcase but allowing him to maintain his alert posture. The crowd was pushed back, whispers spreading like wildfire. A few passengers recorded from a distance while others simply watched with concern. The bomb squad was called in, standard protocol for suspicious luggage, but Jamie felt it in her gut, this wasn't a bomb. Max had responded to hundreds of dangerous items, but his reaction here wasn't just aggressive. It was distressed. He whimpered between barks, nose pressing hard against the seams of the suitcase, like he knew something, or someone, was inside. Two officers approached with caution, their protective gear in place. "We're going to open it," one said, his voice steady but tense. Jamie gave a nod and stepped back, keeping Max close. The moment the zipper was slowly pulled, everyone held their breath. A hush fell over the terminal. Max stopped barking. He sat, eyes wide, tail thumping slowly against the floor. It was as if he already knew what was inside and was waiting, hoping. Then the top flap opened, and the expressions on the officers' faces changed in an instant. They froze. One gasped audibly. Inside the suitcase, curled in on itself, was a tiny, shivering puppy, barely a few weeks old. Its fur was matted, soaked with sweat and urine, its ribs clearly visible through paper-thin skin. The poor thing had been stuffed into a cramped corner with nothing to eat, no air holes, and no chance of escape. One officer immediately knelt down, reaching into the suitcase with trembling hands. He gently pulled the fragile body out and held it close. The puppy gave a faint whimper, alive, but just barely. A wave of silence swept through the gathered crowd, broken only by the sounds of the puppy's shallow breathing. Jamie stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed. Even after all her years in law enforcement, she hadn't expected this. Max nuzzled closer to the officer holding the puppy, letting out a soft, sorrowful whine. It was clear he hadn't just sensed life, he'd sensed suffering. Another officer whispered, "Who would do this?" No one had an answer. The suitcase had no name tag, and the luggage claim ticket had been torn off. But one thing was certain, this wasn't just a crime. This was cruelty in its purest form. And Max had just saved a life. Airport security quickly cordoned off the area. Travelers were ushered to nearby gates as a team of officers began inspecting security footage. They rewound hours of recordings, scanning every face, every suitcase that passed through the checkpoint. Time was ticking. They had to find the person who did this. Jamie, shaken but focused, took the lead. She had seen Max do incredible things before, but this was something else. He wasn't trained to detect animal cruelty, yet he'd done it. He'd acted purely on instinct, on empathy. The footage eventually revealed a tall man, mid-40s, dragging the suitcase with unusual care. He looked nervous, glancing around as if afraid someone might see what was inside. When he checked in the luggage, he didn't speak a word to the attendant, just dropped it and walked away. No identification, no conversation. They cross-referenced the footage with airport entry logs, narrowing it down to a local cab company. Within hours, they had a name. The man had a criminal history, animal abuse, neglect, even smuggling. It wasn't his first time, but thanks to Max, it might just be his last. Jamie looked at her partner. "Let's bring him in," she said. Max wagged his tail. With the suspect's name and address in hand, Jamie and a team of officers raced across the city. Every second felt like an eternity. If there was one suffering animal, there could be more. The apartment complex was on the edge of town. Quiet, almost too quiet. The team moved in silently, Max leading the way, his nose to the ground, his ears twitching. When they knocked on the door, there was no answer. But Max began to growl softly, pacing near the cracks of the door. Jamie nodded to the officers. With one swift kick, the door burst open. The smell hit them instantly, rotting food, urine, and something far worse. The suspect was inside, startled and trying to escape out the back window, but officers caught him before he got far. Inside the small apartment, the team found cages stacked on top of each other. Whimpers echoed from every corner. There were puppies, kittens, even exotic birds, all crammed into filthy conditions. Some were barely alive. Tears welled in Jamie's eyes as Max gently sniffed each cage, stopping longest at the weakest ones. This wasn't just about one suitcase. It was a whole operation, one Max had helped bring crashing down. As news of the airport incident and subsequent rescue operation spread, it triggered an outpouring of emotions from the public. Local and national media caught wind of the story, and within hours, headlines splashed across TV screens and news feeds. K9 dog uncovers massive animal cruelty operation. Suitcase discovery leads to dozens of rescued animals. Social media platforms buzzed with shock, anger, and admiration, especially for Max. Investigators revealed that the suspect had been operating under the radar for years, shipping animals in cruel, illegal ways to underground buyers. Dozens of animals had already perished in transit. The suitcase Max discovered had been destined for a private buyer overseas. Its contents would never have survived the journey. Had Max not acted when he did, many more would have suffered. His instincts didn't just stop a crime, they exposed a darkness no one expected to find.